This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jarom Jordan.
Oh, yeah, BYU Sports Nation is live. Your day-to-day play-by-play back in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Tuesday, October 5th, wherever and however you're connected. Great to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up alongside a man who is on a quest to locate the lost Beehive boot, Jarom Jordan.
Where is the Beehive boot? So we've been told for years, hey, the winner of the state gets the Beehive boot. So Utah State, BYU, who gets the Beehive boot? BYU gets it this year. We haven't really cared about this because BYU never beat Utah previously, right, for like a decade. But now the BYU has wins over Utah and Utah State. Where's that boot at? We want that Beehive boot.
Do you remember when you first learned about the Beehive boot? Because I think I learned about it from NCAA football 2003.
Yeah, probably.
Whenever BYU would play Utah or Utah State, this little Beehive boot would pop up and say, oh, the battle for the Beehive boot. And I'm like, that's a thing?
Yeah, so serious question, where is it? Like, where is it? I'm assuming Utah has it?
I had a conversation with a few high-level BYU athletics employees after the game against Utah State, and they said, yeah, we need to track this thing down because BYU owns the state. We need the Beehive boot in the student-athlete building on display.
Yeah, where is it? No, serious
question.
Is
it hidden at the University of Utah?
Where is it? It's
we have the wagon wheel.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
we want to rock the Beehive boot. Let's go. If you have any information, you can contact Crime Stoppers. No.
What's Crime Stoppers?
Just a stupid hotline.
Oh, gotcha.
In Palm Springs. I shouldn't say stupid.
The Palm Springs
there were people that helped that out. Yes. Who stole the Beehive boot?
Yeah, what the heck?
Here's your show lineup. Of course, we would love more details. Hashtag BYUS. And if you know where the Beehive boot is, we're going to rank every game remaining on the BYU football schedule left from most concerning to least concerning. Dave McCann, longtime play-by-play man, after further review host, will join us to discuss that. And is he okay with Jacob Conover, the third-string quarterback, starting against Boise State? Would you prefer BYU in the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl? The correct answer is yes. Plus, it's Top 5 Tuesday. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
Number 10, BYU and Boise State, Saturday afternoon, ABC, BYU Radio. Which QB will suit up for the Cougars, however? Here's Kalani Stuckey.
Yep. As far as right now, they're all still in contention to play this Saturday. So until we practice and get a look at them, no one's been taken off. So right now, as today, everyone's still available to play.
That's when you just take off his gamesmanship. Baylor Romney got a concussion. He's probably not going to play. All good.
Maybe there's a miraculous recovery.
For the latest from the coach, check out the Satake Show tonight, 8:30 Eastern, on the BYU TV app.
You think he'll be asked about it again?
I would hope so.
Yeah. Congratulations to Tyler Algier, Joe Tukuafu, and Campbell Barrington, all named to the Pro Football Network Team of the Week for their individual performances in BYU's win against Utah State. Kirk Herbstreit of ESPN names Tyler Algier 5th on his top performers of Week 5 list. And Ryan Rico named to the Ray Guys 8 for Week 5 of the season. The 8 honorees, including Rico, are now eligible for the Ray Guy Award Punter of the Week honor that will be announced later today.
Quarterback Michael Davis of the Chargers had 5 tackles on Monday Night Football last night to help the Chargers give the Raiders first loss despite a 45-minute indoor lightning delay. I still don't understand how that works.
There are openings on the outside of the stadium.
Gotcha.
On the outside.
I didn't know there were openings.
And so our buddy Steve Young was a little confused, but apparently there is a chance that the lightning could strike sideways.
If there are openings,
and go into the stadium.
I didn't know there were openings. No, I get it.
Yeah. $5 billion stadium. Indoors.
$5 billion stadium. And you
Yeah.
thought Solomon's Temple was expensive.
And still prone to a lightning delay. How about that? BYU women's volleyball.
What's the point of being indoors?
Exactly. What is the point? BYU women's volleyball jumps 1 spot to number 9 in the latest ABCA coaches poll. The Cougars have a record of 14-1. Their only loss is to the currently second-ranked team in America, Pitt. on the road.
That was without Taylor Ballard-Nix, by the way.
How about that? The Cougs take on Portland this Thursday at home. You can watch it live streaming on the BYU TV app. Kennedy Eschenberg also named the WCC Defensive Player of the Week. She averaged over 2 blocks per set in wins against Santa Clara and San Francisco.
Brecken Mozengo wins the West Coast Conference Offensive Player of the Week in women's soccer after a brace at number 16 Gonzaga and the Cougars' 6-1 thrashing of the Zags. BYU hosts St. Mary's tomorrow night, 9 Eastern, on the BYU TV app and BYU Radio.
BYU men's golf currently finishing round 2 of the Paintbrush Invitational in Parker, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. BYU as a team in 4th place. Zach Jones, the top Cougar individual right now, at 8 over par. He's tied for 9th. Tough course.
And the softball team has a blue and white scrimmage this afternoon.
All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending, presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living. Learn more at bodyguards.com. The BYU Cougars, 5-0. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, they had an 11% chance of starting the season 5-0. 7 games remain. Jarom, the question is, of those lucky 7 games remaining in the regular season, what are the toughest left on BYU's schedule? Let's rank them, shall we?
Well, we did it this morning, so let's show you. Here's what we think. So, in order, and hopefully I remember. Baylor, USC, Boise State, Virginia, and Washington State.
Okay, not surprisingly, the 4 Power Fives remaining in the top 5 with Boise State kind of mixed in the middle there.
Okay, now USC, had a couple losses. We thought they were the toughest team on the schedule before the season. We both felt that way. FPI rank, USC is higher than Baylor right now, and the win percentage chance for BYU is higher against Baylor than it is USC, meaning BYU has a lesser chance to win against USC. So ESPN's saying USC is the toughest opponents left on the season, left on the schedule. I think the reason we think Baylor is because USC's had a few struggles. Obviously, getting blown out by Oregon State, we're licking our chops here going, oh, that's a winnable game in the Coliseum.
They fired their head coach less than a fourth of the way into the season.
Yeah, and obviously the injury to Caden Slovis, and then Jackson Dart at a corner canyon tears the meniscus. Caden Slovis comes back. They win. Now, Stanford is better than we think. Now, when Stanford blew out USC with brother Elder Tanner McKee, that was like, whoa, now brother Elder Tanner McKee has defeated Oregon as well.
And USC, yeah, how about that?
So those are 2 pretty good wins, man. So USC is going to be tough. I don't care if USC's 5-7. That's a tough game for BYU, always, no matter what. And we've talked about this before. When the dust settles on a season, a lot of times when BYU wins a big game on the road, if that is a Power 5 team and they won at least 8 games, that's a rare instance in BYU history. That's a tough win to get.
Sure. Baylor's going to win 8 games.
Yeah. They're 4-1 right now. They're going to win 8, you'd think, right? Unless they collapse. So, yes, Baylor, USC. Boise State's still good. I know they're 2-3. Again, I'm going to scream it the whole week. Boise State's good. Don't underestimate the Broncos this week. Virginia and Washington State. It doesn't mean Virginia stinks. It just means they're 4th on the list. Then Washington State, I think they're actually not that good. BYU should win that game for sure.
Utah State beat Washington State on the road.
Yeah.
Nick Rolovich has got a little bit of a political situation going on up in Pullman.
Getting vaxxed or not as a state employee.
Well, it's weird. It's become a distraction. It's become a full-on distraction for that team.
Oh, yeah. No.
That's not good. Like, that thing has gone way out. It's blown way out of proportion. So there are weird things happening in that camp. But
I don't know that it's been blown out of proportion. He just hasn't answered the question.
I'm with you. USC, Baylor number 1. I just think Baylor right now is a little bit more cohesive as a unit than USC based on the things we just discussed with the Trojans.
By having a head coach?
Yeah. You don't have an interim head coach. What?
Don't they have
USC lost to Stanford and they fired Clay Helton.
Yeah, they have an interim head coach.
Right. Baylor doesn't have an interim head coach.
Oh, right.
They have an actual head coach.
They have Dave McCann.
Yes. So Baylor, USC. Boise State is interesting, and part of the reason I wanted to put them number 3 is because of BYU's current quarterback situation. Like when the game is played and who's available also factor into this.
Wait, oh no, Hank Bachmeier is playing maybe for Boise State. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
By the way, this will be the first start for brother Bachmeier against BYU. He didn't play in 2019. He didn't play in 2020. Hence the Bronco tears relative to those games. But listen, there's a good chance BYU starts a third-string freshman quarterback, just like 2019, on Saturday. And his name is Jacob.
And rain is in the forecast, just like it was in 2019.
Well. And who's calling the plays? Aaron Roderick again. So
is BYU going to start a third-string quarterback at home against Boise State again?
it might have to. It all depends on Jaron Hall's health. There's like no way Baylor Romney plays this week. Come on.
This is why Boise State's number 3 on the list. When and the circumstances going into this game make me more concerned about this game than when Virginia comes in on October 30th.
The BYUers coming back to town on my birthday, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
People are saying, hey, what about games 6 and 7? BYU's going to win at Georgia Southern, and they're going to win handily against Idaho State. Okay?
I thought live on BYU TV.
Live on BYU
Dude,
TV.
we have a contract.
Well, that's why I let you say it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's part of your deal.
I just need to know you're on board.
That's part of your deal.
It is.
BYU has a
I'd rather have your name in it.
2.8% chance to win out according to ESPN's Football Power Index.
Yeah, I just think BYU's losing 1 to 2 games still. Like, it's going to happen. 84 was 84 because the schedule was easier. This isn't an easy schedule.
According to ESPN's Football Power Index, BYU's remaining strength of schedule is 78th in the country. Well, so not a world beater.
Yeah. No, listen, BYU can win 10 in the regular season. Maybe 11.
BYU can win 11. BYU can win 12. As BYU already won the toughest game on the schedule, Arizona State, they're ranked number 22 now.
I would argue getting over the hump of Utah was the toughest thing. To me, that's the toughest thing. But if you're just talking like
best opponent,
yeah. If you just say like opponent and there's nothing else, Arizona State.
We'll find out more about Arizona State this weekend.
Their win on Saturday was fantastic.
Arizona State, Stanford this Saturday.
Ooh, that's a sneaky one. Okay. Probably on the Pac-12 Network at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time.
You may have to struggle a little bit to find that game.
Just kidding. Now we're all high and mighty, Big 12. No, not yet. You're right.
We were making fun of the Pac-12 Network before BYU was a member of the Big 12.
Yeah, we shouldn't be too. We don't have HD distribution on Dish and Direct. Like, use the app, whatever. Like, everyone has an issue. It's all good. It's all good.
Our question of the day.
I don't want to make fun of other networks. You're right.
In your opinion, what are the toughest games left on BYU football's schedule? Let's hear from you, BYUSN, in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
First response from Brandon Bourget on Twitter. Boise State, number 1. Potentially starting a new quarterback, BYU, against a team that's hungry for redemption.
They're hungry.
The context is heavy. Number 2, Baylor, nationally relevant. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Virginia, emotions on both sides.
There's emotion with Baylor, too. Jeff Grimes and Eric Patel.
Yes. Not USC, most talented team on paper, BYU will play all year.
100%.
Georgia Southern, trap game. No. Washington State doesn't make the list.
Listen, Georgia Southern runs the triple option. And speaking of coach, they've already fired their head coach.
Yes, they have an interim head coach, too.
But BYU has lost to an interim head coach in a bowl game.
Washington.
2013, Marcus Tuiasosopo. By the way, Boise State this week. Read, is it Beatsy? Beatsy? From my wife, please call it Boise and not Boise. Every time someone says it wrong, I have to hear there's no Z in Boise. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now,
listen, I think we've been good about this.
We are from the school of correct pronunciation. Okay?
Correct. Yes.
It's Boise, not Boise.
No Z.
Okay, and then the other one is Gonzaga. Okay, we've been screaming from the rooftops for years. Everyone says one of the following: Gonzaga, which is super wrong. That's like saying Oregon or Nevada. Just get the heck out of here.
It's not the Zogs. They're the Zags.
What are you from, Connecticut? Get out of here. Okay, love the Connecticut BYU fans, but pronounce it correctly. Okay. Louisville.
Yes.
Louisville. Okay. Gonzaga.
No.
It's not a gun.
Gone.
It's Gonzaga. Gonzaga. Boise. Say it correctly. Say it correctly.
This TED Talk from Jarom Jordan was...
Come on. Let's go.
Brought to you by Crime Stoppers.
And General Gridlock. Coming up. Our Kalani Sitake... Is Kalani Sitake the Ted Lasso of college football?
Plus, longtime play-by-play man, BYU TV, Dave McCann joins us to discuss the most difficult game remaining on BYU's schedule? And should the Cougars feel confident if they have to start a third stringer again against Boise State? This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living.
Couture luxurious blanket. Getting cozy with family and friends. A gift for everyone. Minky Couture, official luxury blanket of BYU Athletics.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Join Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler, David Nixon as they break down BYU's big win at Utah State, preview Boise State. You know what it is. Tuesday night, 7 Eastern on the BYU TV app. It's after further review.
We are live in Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton. To my left sits Jarom Jordan, and to his left is the man we just introduced as the host of After Further Review. Dave McCann is back on the program. Rocking the BYU Sports Nation throwback black T-shirt with white lettering. I haven't seen that in a while.
It's old school.
Yeah.
Faro, an old guy.
OG.
Are we old enough to have old school stuff?
Yeah, you guys are. I was just thinking that day-to-day play-by-play thing I've read 1,000,000 times in all our games for this show. And this shows this is the crown jewel of the operation. So
thank you so much.
That's why I'm sending some karma to this show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we can
Remember we sent Zach Wilson some karma. It was 2 weeks delayed.
Yeah. Yep.
But it arrived last Sunday.
Well, there's a shipping issue
2 days ago
around the world.
That's what, because of COVID. And anyway, he was great Sunday. So
yes, he was.
It just took a while to get there.
That was an amazing weekend, by the way. Just it was Zach Wilson, it was Taysom Hill, it was obviously BYU, Utah State. It was getting in the top 10. Life's good right now.
I'll be honest. So the Jets game went into the second session of conference. So I'm like, I had on my phone, just following along on the couch, minding my own business, watching conference, looking down because they'd gone into was the last few seconds, and then they tied it and went in overtime, and they missed the kick, to tie the game or whatever, and I was just like, he missed the kick. I'm like, oh yes.
Okay.
And my wife looks at me disgusted, takes my phone, and puts it over here, and that was that. And I'm like, what am I, 7? Could I have not just waited till 4 o'clock? But anyway, that was, and then Taysom was running touchdowns, and
bruising.
It was good.
Fools.
It was a good weekend for all that stuff.
Dave McCann, master of the dual screen experience.
one time master.
All right, before the break, we teased that we were going to discuss the BYU quarterback situation. The Cougars, well documented in 2019, started a third stringer, Baylor Romney, who was a freshman. They were coming off a loss to South Florida against a ranked, undefeated Boise team in the rain in LaVell Ridge Stadium in 2019. There are people that are feeling some trepidation, like, Oh, man, is Boise State going to return the favor to BYU in the rain forecasted when BYU's unbeaten and ranked? And in come
College
the
Football
Broncos.
Hall of Famer Hank Bachmeier is going to be in town.
The Broncos coming with a losing record. They're 2-3. Like,
He's a good player.
Dave, what level of concern do you have or trepidation that Boise State's ready to repay the favor?
Well, I watched the Nevada game the other day, and Boise State didn't even look interested in that game. It was on their home field. They rushed for 22 yards. And I thought to myself, are they capable of coming down here and beating BYU and turning their season around and marching on like we did in 19? I'm not sure if they are. I'm not sure if they're good enough. They got a different coach. They have a different system. They have different players. And we haven't faced Bachmeier yet. So could they do it? You bet. We see it in college football every Saturday. But they got to counter what BYU does best. They don't turn it over. They protect their quarterback. I mean, the Boise quarterback's been sacked 13 times. BYU's quarterbacks, no matter who it is, 4. And we're playing better teams. So our line is beastly in protecting, and our penalties are down. We haven't had very many catastrophic penalties. I can't even think of 1 or 2 that really, you know, maybe a late hit on a drive against Utah or something that really helped the other team. So if no matter who our quarterback is, if we stay the course and play our game, I don't know if Boise State's good enough to overcome that. Now, if we come over and turn it over like they did, then a fake field goal, flea flicker, a 45-yard run by a guy that's fast that nobody knows, all that can happen like it did in 2019. And we also had the home crowd to help, and they don't have it here. Possible, sure, but I like BYU's chances if they just do what they do. They don't have to be spectacular. They haven't been spectacular. You look at their offensive numbers and defensive numbers, 60, 57, 91, whatever, but they've been good enough in every game.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder if the second half against Utah State was sort of a template for what we might see this week, which was Jacob Conover didn't, and Aaron Roddick didn't say, hey, you got to win this, baby. Right. Nope, he said, Tyler, you got to win this, and then defense, you got to show up and play better. And they did, because that could have been very dangerous for BYU in the second half. Ultimately, it wasn't.
If it is going to be Conover on Saturday, he will have had every day of practice knowing that it's going to be him on Saturday and not him on the sideline going, well, you know, I'm going to go in if Baylor gets hurt, but he's not going to get hurt. Jaron got, you know, and then all of a sudden you're in the game. And he had what? He had the halftime to figure it out.
Yeah, and I talked to him after the game. He said he knew right away. He's like, okay, I better be ready.
And he looked scared to death. I couldn't tell if it was his visor or what, but his eyes looked like, this is my first game since high school, which it was. And I think it took Aaron a few possessions to kind of get him some plays that worked for him. But with a full week of practice, and remember, he competed for the job in the spring and the summer, and in theory in the fall. So do what you do, and you can win with Conover. If he throws 5 picks, then probably not. But he's not. I don't think they're going to have him in a position to throw 5 picks.
Right. Isn't that gnarly, though? The BYU's down to its third-string quarterback, potentially, and we're still feeling good? Yeah, that's pretty awesome, right?
It's the balm of all things.
Yes.
Being number 10 and 5-0. Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that Boise State game in 2019 was a major turning point for BYU. Since that game, including that win, the Cougars have gone 21-3. So they won 5 in a row after the South Florida loss, starting with Boise. 11-1 last year, 5-0 this year. As you have watched this team progress under Kalani Sitake, what has changed to bring about this 21-3 record in the last 24 games?
The offensive line. They are monsters, and they have depth, and there's monsters behind the monsters. And that wasn't the case when Taysom and Jamal were running the football. And Jamal's the all-time rushing leader, and Taysom was running all over the place. History has shown they were running for their lives now most of the time, as opposed to just running. But this offensive line and last year's O-line, there are NFL guys on it. And next year's O-line is going to be huge. And I think that's everything. Because if you can run the football, you can do play action. If you can do play action and run the football, you got guys that can go deep. And then you have your tight ends. I just think it all starts with that. And there have been years when we haven't been able to run the football. Well, this isn't that year. And last year wasn't that year. And Tyler Algier is the first to say, my offensive line is making it possible for me. And it's not just because he's a nice guy, which he is. They are. And you look at some of the holes he ran through against Utah State and some of the plays, guys downfield blocking. and this and that. I think that's everything, because I think that's where the mentality of toughness comes from. The Utah State coach said afterward, BYU's stronger and tougher. Where did that come from? Not the DBs. It came from up front where it matters, and I think that's been the big difference. And that's what he didn't have when he took over the job.
And the fact that, BYU got out of go fast, go hard. They got into what they wanted to get to. Now you have, and think about it, BYU had 3 backups on the O-line Friday.
Yeah.
Campbell Barrington in at right tackle, and Connor Pay and Joe Tukoff moving around, right? It's just different. And now Tyler Algier, it hit me Friday. I think we probably knew it before, but it really hit me Friday. Oh, Tyler Algier is the MVP of the team right now.
Yeah.
He's the MVP.
Yeah. He's the best football player on the team.
Ooh, I think Rico's the best. I think
Wilgar's right there, and Rico. Okay, Rico could be in there.
Yeah.
Rico might be able to beat them all, like in a fight, in a cage fight. but I think you're right. And I think what's different with this team and with our fan base now as we move forward, and you've been talking about the toughest games coming, we're playing with house money. And you're like, how can we play with house money? We're 5-0, and we're trying to get to the prize. In all of independence, getting to the prize was to get into a P5. We've got to beat these P5 teams to legitimize ourselves, and then maybe we'll be a show pony enough where someone will take us. Well, someone's taken us, so we're there. So could we lose Saturday? Would it be catastrophic for the future of the program? No. The future of the program is going to the Big 12. Next season with Notre Dame and Arkansas and Oregon, all that stuff, it's like, if we weren't going to a P5, it would be, we're going to stress over this, because if we don't beat these, no one will ever take us serious.
Yep.
Well, we already have the prize. And so next year we celebrate the last year of independence, which, usually people celebrate the first year of independence.
Sure.
We're celebrating giving up our independence.
Yes.
I don't know how history will play
First
that
year of
around.
dependence.
Yeah.
23.
But and what would I hope, when we've kind of had a running theme on AFR, is not to tell people how to think, but we as a fan base should relish in the fact that it's Tuesday. We're 5-0, ranked number 10. Next Tuesday, we might be 6-0, ranked number 8, or we might be ranked 16th, having a terrible loss or whatever. But the here and now and the present is where the fun is.
Yes.
The stress is in the future, and we don't have to stress anymore, because the payoff is coming whether we win the rest of the games this season and go undefeated next season. If we get gypped out of a New Year's Six bowl this year, well, that's too bad. We're going to the Big 12, as opposed to, well, this is it for us. Independence isn't sustainable. We can't get where we want to go. Well, I think that's what changes this, and I hope fans, if we go undefeated, that'll be awesome. If we don't, we're having a great time. We've accomplished our goal as an independent, and it's coming in 2023. So let's enjoy Saturday. We're going to wear our sweatshirts, because it'll finally be sweatshirt weather. We're on national TV again. The team's flying high. We had big recruits coming in. They're choosing BYU.
Oh,
all in the last couple weeks.
I had a conversation where it was like, hey, we're getting some interest we were not before.
Oh yeah, the payoff is already here. So that's why I say house money. And then we go out and play loose, win every game, and we'll still probably go to a lesser bowl than when we're in the Big 12 and we take second place.
You know what I want? I want to have a Dependence Day celebration.
In 23?
Yeah, like July
1st or whatever.
1st, 2023.
Bring in Bowlesby and all the guys, and have them just take away our freedoms.
There will be a Dependence Day
Brought
celebration.
to you by Depends, the diaper.
Okay, Dave, you said you're paying attention to our conversation.
I don't know if we needed to go there on the Depends thing. I thought that really took us a different direction.
Oh, my goodness.
That's why this is BYU.
Most difficult games left on the schedule. Jarom and I think that it's at Baylor and then at USC and then Boise State number 3. How would you rank the toughest games remaining on BYU's schedule?
The biggest emotional game will be Virginia for Bronco and all that stuff, and they're capable. As we saw, they beat Miami the other day in a good one. So that's the emotional one.
Kind of lucky on that one, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like a lot lucky on that one. But hey, you know what? Sometimes we get lucky. It happens. It's great. So it's one of the 3, USC, Baylor, or Boise State. And I don't think it's Boise State based on how Boise has been.
Yeah.
I don't understand Baylor. I don't know if they're really good or not. Their biggest test was this last week, and Oklahoma State beat them. But it's there, and it's on a Big 12 venue. So I would put that one as the toughest, with USC the second, because we don't even know what USC is going to be.
What
yes,
will they be?
we agree with that order.
And I'll tell you this, if we are undefeated or 10-1 or whatever, going to the Coliseum Thanksgiving weekend, we will have more fans at the USC game than USC.
Oh, yeah.
There's a real possibility.
Because USC won't be chasing the prize, and won't that be fun? All of a sudden, we started in Vegas by taking over that place. We will finish in the LA Coliseum. And if you think there is a strong BYU following in Vegas, wait till you see Southern California.
Oh,
It's incredible.
07, BYU plays UCLA in the Rose Bowl. And I just hear this roar, and I think, oh, UCLA just came out. No, it was BYU.
Yeah.
Like, it was like this spiritual moment.
It is going to agitate the Trojan loyalists like never before.
I have a theory. I call it pioneer settlement theory. So they would occupy space, annoy the locals, and then they'd say, hey, you need to leave now. This happens in all these venues in the West Coast Conference, Santa Clara. You know, it's like, hey, we're going to raise the tickets then. You know, that's going to happen in USC.
So what I like coming up is you got USC and Utah. We win that game.
Yes.
Whoever wins is going to help our schedule. And then you got Arizona State, Utah the next week. We win that game. Whoever wins that game is going to help our. So even the decent teams that we've beaten can now start helping us as we just try to. We got to take down Boise State and then just go to the next one. Can we run the table? Yes, we can run the table, but one at a time in those matchups. When again, like we were last month in the summer, you look at 12, you're going, 12's a lot. I don't think you can win all 12. No one wins all 12 except for Alabama, and sometimes they don't win all 12, or 13 or 14 or however many games they play. But when you line them up mano a mano, it's like, why shouldn't we win that game?
Yep, this year it's possible.
And then all of a sudden, you can win all. You can't win them all at once, but BYU can line up and win them all after getting through the first 5.
It'd be awesome. And oh, by the way, the day of the USC game, BYU at Utah basketball.
Yeah, it's going to be
It's
good.
It's going to be a great day.
2 days after Thanksgiving
weekend.
That'll be good.
Life's
Football,
good.
family, fun.
Remember, we've sat on this show being at what, the 4-9 season? That was still on this show.
Yeah.
This is, we've gone through lows and highs and whatever. It's all good right now. It is all good for Cougar fans. And then it just trickles down all the sports. You know, you turn on BYU TV and you see volleyball, soccer, whatever. You're seeing national power in every sport, but football leads the way. And so we celebrate 5-0 tonight on AFR. We'll celebrate the artistry of Tyler Algier.
Yeah, yes.
In a variety of angles. And get ready for Saturday with a big countdown to kickoff. I interviewed Tyler and asked him, hey, there's the Big 12 coming. There's BYU's all-time leading rushing record coming. There's the NFL coming. What's most important to you? And he'll give you the answer Saturday during Countdown to Kickoff.
All right, we look forward to it.
That's why they pay the big bucks. Okay? Let's call the tease.
Dave, we look forward to further review. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Dependence Day.
Dependence Day.
July 1st, 2023.
Let's seek a different sponsor. Let's go to
Perfect.
There's got to be something
It's
better.
on brand.
Like some kind of ice cream maker or something. not that. Not that.
Not adult diapers? Why not? Come on, man. Come on,
Independence Day, though. I like it.
Coming up, which rivalry games need to stay when BYU joins the Big 12?
And is Navy the new black? We're talking uniforms? You bet
You
we
have
are.
a daughter named Navy.
That's going to be awesome.
This is BYU Sports Nation.
Are you going to have a daughter named Royal, too?
No.
You might.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork offers a large inventory of Ford vehicles, including a selection of cars and trucks, providing a range of transportation choices. From the Ford Fusion sedan and the Edge crossover SUV to a range of pickups including the F-150. Each product line comes with options to enhance performance, comfort, and safety. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Dexter & Dexter is a full-service law firm offering a wide range of legal services. Since 1995, we have helped more than 20,000 Utahns both to navigate life's challenges and to make the most of life's opportunities. From personal injury to business law, and from adoption to bankruptcy, we are passionate about shouldering your burdens. To learn more about scheduling a no-obligation consultation, visit dexterlaw.com.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again. And you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Familiar with the BYU TV app? Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With the free BYU TV app.
I like it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
BYU football with Klein Stocke is tonight, 8:30 Eastern with Gregor Bell. Klein Stocke, of course. Gabe Summers, Ben Bywater in the film room, and Chris Jackson's amazing journey from homelessness to BYU and the newest Deep Blues.
He is Jarom. I'm Spencer. This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get fantastic content at any point in your day, follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You said we were bringing it on TikTok, by the way?
Yeah.
We are. I went
we're
through
bringing
last
it on
night.
TikTok
Super
now.
fun.
Okay, we got another one in the books.
All right.
We got our own Couch Guy version. Couch Guy things coming up. Okay, Crime Stoppers tip lines seem to have worked.
Crime Stoppers tip line worked.
At Reddit College Football, a representative from the University of Utah told KSL.com that the Beehive boot, is in their facility and will soon be in BYU's possession.
Oh, I love it.
The Beehive boot is coming back.
I love it.
It's been a minute.
Well earned by BYU for defeating Utah.
09 is the last time BYU would have won the Beehive boot.
12 years.
Right.
Beehive boot's coming home after 12 years.
Hit it. It's coming home.
All right, good news. Crime Stoppers tip working. Let's whip it. Cougar Whip Around presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
What was it? So like a hotline people would call in
Yes,
if
it was like
so-and-so's committing a crime.
Yeah, well.
Shouldn't they call the police?
Call 451-8888.
Oh, you
Crime
remember
Stoppers or whatever, something like that.
Okay. Wait, shouldn't they call the cops, though? Okay, Brett McMurphy projects BYU versus Cincinnati in the Fiesta Bowl. Stuart Mandel is BYU in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma. And Yahoo projects BYU versus Penn State in the Peach Bowl. Which would you rather? That would be nice, right?
Oh, Jarom, I would love BYU to play Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl.
That'd be fun, right?
I would love that matchup. Obviously, any New Year's Six Bowl game is amazing, but there's something about facing Spencer Rattler and Oklahoma, who I feel like, as the number 6 team in America, they're a little bit of fool's gold because they've kind of struggled this year. I would love for BYU to test their might against Oklahoma in a New Year's Six game.
BYU might play Oklahoma in the next 2 years. 23 and 24. But I would love to play Penn State.
Okay.
That would be awesome. But honestly, not picky. If BYU's in the New Year's Six game,
fantastic.
They can play whoever. I don't care.
All right, Yahoo's Pete Thamel says BYU has the best chance in the West to make the college football playoff. Jarom, are you buying this as the best team in the West?
Well, those are two different questions to me. Chance and are they the best? I don't know. I think Oregon's got a pretty good shot still, despite the loss. They'd have to run the table, obviously, but I still think they're pretty good. But yeah, BYU might because it has fewer Power Fives than the Pac-12. And they're very winnable, as we've talked about for the past year.
I mean, who else is in the West that
has a chance?
Even has a chance? Fresno State just lost to Hawaii.
No, I'm not going to.
They're done. They're 3-2.
The question was to make the playoff,
right?
I don't think BYU has a chance to make the playoff. That's just me.
We're
talking New Year's Six,
right?
Yeah.
I know you don't think they have a chance, but this is just the best chance of any team in the West.
Maybe
is that BYU?
Yeah.
Strangely, I am buying this because I think Oregon has looked too inconsistent. They got the big win against Ohio State, struggled against Fresno State, won that game, but then just lost to Stanford. Oregon, I think, is probably going to lose another game this year because the Pac-12 is so...
You lose 2?
Prototypically eating itself and ruining college football playoff chances.
Eating itself is a compliment. They're not good enough. Someone has to win 0 or 1 games. Lose 0 or 1 games.
I mean, say what you will about the chances. BYU might have the best chance.
Crazy. And a quote to Pete Thamel, who runs the C block here. Aaron Roderick likened Kalani Sitake to Ted Lasso.
Yep.
It's Kalani Sitake the Ted Lasso of college football. Let's read this quote.
Okay.
It all comes back to Kalani Sitake, said Roderick to Yahoo, on how BYU is overcoming injuries starting 5-0. He's like the Ted Lasso of college football coaches. He's so positive all the time. Our players love playing for him and coming in the building every day. Practice is fun and meetings are fun. Created such a fun environment to play and coaching.
I just want to know if he does biscuits with the boss with Tom Holmoe. You know, does he make his...
I'm stumped more than Paul Bunyan's local forest.
And does he hate brown garbage water known as tea?
There's so many good quotes. I love that my Mariners took on the Believe mantra just the last week. It was fun.
I can see it. I mean, there are certainly qualities to Kalani Sitake that exist in the show Ted Lasso and in the character Ted Lasso. So much heart in Ted Lasso, right?
Yeah.
Yes, hope, belief, never giving up on your guys.
Positivity.
If there were a coach in college football to compare him to, yeah, Kalani's definitely in the conversation.
I would go more like Mike Bundy, like a little naive, the Southern draw. Like Ted Lasso is that, but he's also like super naive to what's going on, like relative to.
Okay, also you like Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State's coach.
Like if Mike Gundy and Kalani Sitake came together, that would be Ted Lasso.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The initial simulated BCS rankings, Jarom.
I wrote an article in high school about explaining the BCS.
For 2021, they're out. The computers have BYU ranked number 9.
Oh my gosh.
Are you ready to go back to the BCS formula?
Only when it's convenient.
When it works for BYU?
Yeah.
Hey, number 9.
Oh, yeah.
It's one spot higher than they are in the AP poll.
No.
No.
Consuela.
No. I would have no problem with the BCS formula being a measuring tool if the college football playoff expanded to 12.
It's got to expand to 12.
Right. So if and when it expands to 12, it's like, okay, we're going to use the BCS formula to figure out like the 10th through 12th team.
Like, just use it as a tool. Like, it doesn't have to be the final decision, but it could be like a sorting tool or a starting point or a data point at a minimum.
Sure. Listen to this. This sounds pretty good, though. Number 1, Alabama.
When BYU's 9th, it sounds good.
No, just like it seems legit. Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Iowa 3, Penn State 4, Cincinnati 5, Oklahoma 6, Michigan 7, Ohio State 8, BYU 9, Oregon 10. That's pretty good. Hey, I know we all hated the computer models for a while.
It still has Coastal at 16, so I hate it.
Do you prefer the computer model over what happened with the College Football Playoff Committee last year? Ay.
If the committee was more favorable to BYU, we would have. Where does the All-Navy combo rank on your Uni Power rankings for this season?
Holy cow. I'm still a fan of anything that features white and royal. And BYU's won a couple of white and royal combos. So it's probably, I don't know, number 3 in my power rankings. It's super clean. It's going to be fun to see the Navy helmet with the stretch Y, a unique look we've never seen for BYU in the modern era.
Yeah.
No, number 3, I guess, on my uniform power rankings.
I'm with you. I love white, and I love a little royal accent in there, right? The all royal's fun. I do like the Old Navy more than I thought, though, and let me tell you and show you why. When you look at the Dominator, which is what Dr. Billy Nixon said, I look at the Dominator, and I'm like, oh, I don't like it. Here's why. Tan is the worst.
Yep.
Tan is terrible.
Yes.
Tan is a plague to the BYU jersey in years past. Luckily, it's gone. We're good. It's clean, crisp, fresh, fire, amazing.
Yeah, navy
and the little white accents is wonderful.
It's going to look great. It's going to look so good on national television.
It'll look great on ABC. It really will. It'll look great on Skycam. I'm assuming there's
so
Skycam
fun.
Because ABC 130, okay?
That's so
Skycam
fun.
is important to our production team because there's way better footage.
And those are your uniform power rankings.
I don't know where it is. It's number 4.5. Coming up, Top 5 Tuesday with the best from Logan last Friday.
Where does the Boise State rivalry fit when BYU goes big time in the Big 12?
Ooh.
Will that series continue? What about Utah State? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Good questions. Let's answer them.
Byu Food2go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. Byu Food2go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
my grandfather started this company in 1947, he couldn't have envisioned what we would ultimately become. We realized that our value to our customers is that we will be there day after day, year after year, doing whatever we need to find solutions to the challenges that they face. We are committed to be honestly better in all that we do, in every opportunity that we have to serve our customers.
It was the most epic challenge that I've ever seen any athlete face in the history of art.
This is like a nightmare! My strategy going into this, don't let go. Just hold on for dear life.
I'm happy with how I progressed and learned how to fly a kite. The training with Mahiev is going amazing. I'm doing a lot better than I was yesterday.
Woo, good job! Thank you. Get me out of here!
It's competition day, and I'm going to soar to the top of the podium.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
On the latest BYU Sports Nation right now, having the wagon wheel back in Provo just feels right, but it's really the best way to celebrate being 5-0. BYU football can help with that. Check it out on the BYU and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Well,
account.
Listen, the wagon wheel's great and all, but the beehive boot.
Oh, the beehive boot.
According to our Crime Stoppers tip line.
Listen, we actually have a phone number you can call and leave a message. We did that previously. We need to throw that back out there.
Oh, boy. Do we?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to play some voicemails from you guys. Yeah.
Hey,
I'm told we have bigger things coming there. Oh,
we were discussing the need to pronounce Boise the right way.
Really important. Come on.
Okay. At FinePOAC tweets in, his is his, as, like the word as, A-Z, noise is also with the Z. He's like, it's just the way it is. Okay.
No, it's not.
So there's the argument for Boise, but it's like,
Boise.
hey, people from Boise, they say it Boise. We should accommodate the way that the people from the city say the city's name, right?
Mostly, yes.
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 I can't think of a circumstance where it's like,
I'm not going to say, when BYU plays, down Greenville, South Carolina, I'm not going to say it like that, but that's how the locals say it. You know what I'm saying?
Greenville,
South Carolina.
Well, okay.
My dad's a Southerner. I got to rep.
Boise. Yes. I appreciate the tweet, but
I don't. I'm just kidding. Thanks.
Now, here is the real question, Jarom, because Boise factors into this, as does Utah State, and, of course, the Utes. Which rivalry game are you most interested in continuing when BYU becomes an official member of the Big 12 in 2023?
Okay, it's BYU playing 3 or 4 non-conference games, and I want to play Utah every year until Jesus comes back. I don't know about Utah State and Boise State specifically. I would like an FCS game in there. Okay, if it's 4, then I say, I think there's probably room for Utah State in there.
Okay,
and then somebody else. But BYU fans, PSA: when BYU goes to the Big 12 for like 3 seasons, we're going to be in make a bowl mode. Okay.
Well, are they?
Make a bowl
are they
mode.
though? Because of the transition, like this isn't going to be a stark contrast of a change as we think.
I need to see BYU do this beyond this one season, like to be like, all right, we're not in make a bowl mode. Because there will be a down year here and there. Just know that. Just know. Sometimes BYU won't make a bowl.
What qualifies as a down year? Like
not make a bowl.
Okay, so down year is not making a bowl.
If you don't make a bowl, you suck.
BYU has only missed a bowl game one time in the last 27 year, or sorry.
No. They missed 03-4.
Oh, sorry.
Or
That's
2,
right.
3, 4.
That's right.
I call that the apostasy of BYU football.
Okay.
2 of those were on my mission. What a blessing. But yes, do you want BYU to play a big time opponent not named Utah and non-con? I think the fans do, but I'm not sure it's wise given how tough the Big 12 schedule will be. So it just depends. Again, this will be a scheduling philosophy thing. Oh, we still have this combo in the Big 12. Sorry, not sorry. I love the Utah game. I love the Boise State game, but I'm not sure there's room for it because it's another tough game every year. So I do think there needs to be Utah, FCS, and then if it's only 3, you need to discuss whether that is Utah State, whether that is Boise State, or it's somebody else.
Okay.
Whether it's a big-time opponent or a winnable G5. I do love playing Utah State, though. I wouldn't want to completely scratch that off the schedule. And I think Boise State's a really – I've said this. Of all the games BYU scheduled in Independence, I have loved the series every year with Boise State. I thought this has been one of my favorites.
Okay. I am in favor of appeasing both Boise State and Utah State to a degree.
And Brigham. Let's not act like it's just
why not alternate those games? And every other year, you're playing Boise State and then Utah State. And you can determine with Utah State if it's a true home and road every other year. With Boise State, I think that would be fair.
Would BYU be in that position where Utah State would agree to that, I wonder?
I don't know, where it's like, hey, we'll play you three times.
We are a P5.
We'll play you 3 times in the next 6 years.
We declare 2 road games.
Twice are going to be 2 games are going to be in Provo, and once is going to be in Logan. Like, does BYU in the position where they could say, hey, we'll come to Logan once every 6 years? So alternate Utah State.
Once every 6 years, the herd's going to dissipate. It's going to dissolve into dust like everybody at the end of Infinity War.
How much does Utah State want that game to continue is my point.
Oh, they want it so bad, dude.
Okay, then they would probably agree to, yes, we'll go to Provo twice every 6 years if you come to Logan once every 6 years, right? And then BYU will alternate with Boise State.
Utah State?
So the game with Utah absolutely needs to continue, but alternate Utah State and Boise State every other year.
I need to know if we're playing 3 or 4 non-con games, because that sort of dictates how aggressive or not.
I would imagine that the Big 12 will probably play 9 games, and it will probably be, okay, you play, well, maybe it's only 8, Jaron.
I don't know.
Because if you have 2 6-team divisions, you play the 5 in your division, and then you play 3 in the other division, and then the next year you play the other 3 in the other division.
That's nice.
So maybe it's only 8 games.
Maybe it's only 8. And then you get some better non-con matchups, maybe?
I've talked my way into thinking it'll be an 8-game Big 12 schedule.
Listen, everyone thinks they can be, they're just stuck in the way no, you get new info and you learn and you evolve, you know? Come here.
All right.
Shout out to the top 10.
Plus, the top 5 plays from BYU's win against Utah State in Logan.
In where?
Ogden. Once every 6 years in Ogden, Logan.
In Ogden.
This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
If I got hurt and was laid up at home, I wouldn't even think to call a lawyer. What a hassle. I'd want to meet them first.
What if I told you that for your first consultation, your lawyer will come to you, home or hospital?
Really?
Really.
They do that?
If you've been injured, we'll come to you. It's your job to get better. It's our job to deal with the insurance companies.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
On the next relative race, Team Green's winning streak is in jeopardy.
Do you know where we're going?
No, I don't.
A missing family photo reveals a long-lost sister.
I had that picture for a long time and I lost it.
JT sees his father for the very first time.
See the person that created you. It's beautiful.
And Jarrell discovers that he's not an only child.
These are the siblings that I've always wanted.
This is the best moment of my life.
That's our job. We got to take care of the football and move the team down the field and get the ball in the end zone.
They're just raising the level of play of everybody around them.
And we're moving forward, so hopefully things stick.
If you're a fan of BYU football, then you can't miss Coordinator's Corner. Join host Greg Wrubell as he interviews BYU's football coordinators. Coordinator's Corner, live on BYU TV or on the BYU TV app.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU radio apps.
Download the pod, Google BYU Sports Nation podcast, subscribe, rate, and review the show.
Time for Top 5 Tuesday, presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing. Today, top 5 plays from BYU's 14-point win in Logan against Utah State. Jarom, start us off.
Number 5, first quarter, 3rd and 10. Isaac Rex goes up, gets the grab, tracks the toe, while bobbling the ball, 19 yards on a little 3rd and 10 action. Isaac Rex, well done.
At number 4, first play for the BYU offense. Baylor Romney looking deep for Puka Nacua. Look at him attack the ball. Comes back for the grab. Nacua, 42 yards later, celebrating a big first down for BYU. I expect much more of this in the future, Jarom.
Rod Wilkerson-esque from Orem High. Number 3, second quarter, Tyler Algier, 59 yards to the casa. Slight stumble, Algier hits the hole, and then no Aggies wanted to touch him. Social distancing in effect, and he kind of burns into the right corner and goes into the end zone for a touchdown. One of 3 touchdowns on the night.
And what was nearly his 3rd touchdown of the night, Jarom, Tyler Algier, when BYU needed it most, in one of those weird scenarios in the 4th quarter, up 7, 67 yards. How about the blocks from Puka Nacua on the left side as well? Down to the half-yard line. He would later seal it with a touchdown and ice the win for BYU. Incredible blocks by Nacua once again. Algier, 218 yards, top 10 rushing performance all time individually in BYU football history.
I go to the bathroom for one play.
I know.
One play. And the top play from BYU's win over Utah State. Utah State's opening drive. Malik Moore. This is one of the best interceptions we've seen in a long time from BYU. Right hand, keeps it in with the left. Oh my gosh. This is incredible. Malik Moore is 2nd pick of the year, 4th career. The way he controlled this and balanced and turned onto his back was amazing.
Yes, Jarom, he mossed the receiver. It's not off a defensive back.
You got mossed!
Yes, you got mossed.
Yeah.
Attaboy, Malik.
You got moored.
If you missed the interview I did with Malik Moore after the game, one of my favorites all season.
Yeah. Uriah Leatawa coming over. Because it was Friday, he didn't have to go to bed and go to church.
Right?
Kind of hang out, right?
You can just stay up a little bit.
Rock me, mama, like a wagon.
Yes, they sang. Malik said, I'm going to get myself a pizza. I'm going to eat the whole thing. It's going to be great.
That's no joke, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
That happened after the basketball practice. That was legit. They eat a whole
pizza.
Like one for every guy.
Our question of the day, in your opinion, what are the toughest games left on undefeated and 10th-ranked BYU's schedule? Our Elite Voice of the Day presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Tyson Peterson answers on Twitter. This week at Boise is our Mr. T.
I pity the fool.
Next week at Baylor is our Ivan Drago.
I will break you.
Virginia is our Apollo.
Ooh.
Coming to America. And USC is our Tommy Gunn.
Oh, wow. Very
all
good.
Rocky references.
Wow, that's
okay.
pretty good, man. I like that, Tyson. That's great. That's pretty good.
Well
That's
played.
truly elite. That's great. Some days I'm like, I don't know. That one was.
That one was worth it. Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU
For
Athletics.
Twitter, for staying up. And then top 10. You got number 1 cross country, 5th men's cross country. Women were number 1, 9th women's volleyball, 10th football.
Our thanks to today's guest, Dave McCann.
Sergeant Dennis, no time, bro.
For Jarom Jordan, I am Spencer Linton. Shout out to Chris Hale. After further review, BYU football with Kalani Sitake. Brand new episodes tonight on the BYU TV app. We'll see you then. Go Cougs.